Welcome to the Consultants Way podcast, your go-to resource for all things professional services consulting. Brought to you by McMahon & Ransford, a strategy consulting firm with over 30 years of experience helping B2B organizations achieve sustainable growth, and the Consultants Way, the leading comprehensive consultant development program. Hosted by Dean McMahon and Anthony Paluska, we share expert insights, firsthand experiences, and conversations with industry leaders on the topics that interest you most.
The views and opinions expressed by guests on this podcast are their own and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of their employer, company, or affiliated organizations.
Welcome back to the Consultants Way podcast. Anthony Paluska, Dean McMahon. Dean, how are you doing today?
Doing great. It's a very good day. The weather's nice. I just got back from some vacation. So,
How was Washington, D.C. amidst the shutdown?
Well, we chose to go see the Senate, and it happened to be the day they were discussing how to end the shutdown. And naive that I was, I thought senators were there while other senators were giving speeches, but they just give speeches to the TV.
There you go.
Yeah,
there you go. Somebody
there's
out
no
there
senators listening to other senators in the Senate hall. I'm sure they do things.
Yeah, I'm sure they're having those conversations behind the scenes, and then there's a little bit of something for show going on.
The horse trading is going somewhere else. But anyway, no, it was great, and we were with some friends, so it was very nice. The weather was fantastic. It was great. We had a nice house.
Good.
Yeah, thanks for asking.
Great. So today we're joined by John Quirk. John has, and he'll talk about this, he has experience running his own consulting organizations, 100 plus people. He's had experience working in other consulting and professional services organizations. And most recently, John has spun off and created his own firm, ProServe Metrics, that he runs now, which is really focused on trying to find those either underutilized or leading indicators of success that organizations should be tracking but aren't using today as their key metrics. And he talks a lot about what those are, how to implement some of those, how to think about the team dynamics is where we spend a lot of time here. So I thought it was a great conversation for anybody that is managing and leading a pure play consulting organization, but the applicability of all of this stuff runs for anybody embedded PS and beyond. So, Dean, any key takeaways you have?
Yeah, I really appreciate when someone has a clear passion and the ability to explain it. By the way, that's two different things. John really does that. He has a real passion that we can bring science more to the PS business. And as you said, that leads him quickly to how to make teams successful, how to pick teams, how to understand your people, as he always says, people are all the only tool we have, right? So we're in the people business. So I thought it's going to be a great discussion. People are really going to enjoy it, and I think that people will get a lot of practical value right away.
Yeah, no, I think so too. And you'll notice I try and get him to pick the ideal disc profile and the ideal strengths profile for consultants, and he won't bite on my attempt there. And so he talks about the dynamics that kind of the combination of teams all work out. But
it's very easy to pick those. I'll send you mine.
I pulled mine up as he started talking about it, and I was waiting. I was waiting for my number to be called, but he didn't call any numbers there, and he's got the right approch towards it. But
silly belief that you can work with different kinds of people. Silly belief.
It's crazy. It's crazy. Yeah. But all right, without any further waiting, let's kick it back to the conversation with John. Well, hey, John, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Yeah. I'm excited to have you. Excited to dive into this topic. So we'll have teed some of this up at the front here, but if you don't mind, give a brief introduction of yourself to the audience for us, and allow us to dive in from there.
Sure. My name is John Quirk. I've been in professional services for 30 years, and really done all flavors. I've worked for small companies that grew to be big and were sold. I hung out my own shingle. I've worked for large companies. And for the last decade, up until 2021, I had owned a 100-person technology-based consulting company. And of all of those experiences, I think where we're at today, there are three of them that really, sort of drove where I am thinking about professional services today. One was a very excellent experience that I had with the company that I own, PSC Group out of Chicago. Uh, for multiple years, we were a best place to work. We had 9.5 years average retention for consultants, and our clients liked us. And then the two other experiences that were sort of negative were as being part of small companies get bought and rolled up into bigger organizations. It seems often our consulting companies lose their way in terms of their focus on people, team building, client relationships, and that's really what we're all about today.
Yeah, that's great. And if you don't mind, kind of share with us a little bit, and share with the audience a little bit about what you're doing now. You're not running the 100-person firm anymore. What's today look like for you?
I am not. We have started a company called ProServe Metrics. We are building a product primarily aimed at consulting firms and their resource management that helps companies optimize the teams that they're building and brings forward a lot of advanced metrics, new ways, fresh ways that we should be thinking about the business. Sometimes we call it Moneyball for professional services.
All right. So yeah. So Moneyball for professional services. What are the?
Well, I think the key is to get on base, right? If I recall watching John, the only thing you didn't, before we get to serious questions, the only thing you didn't say was you worked for a big firm that became small.
Yeah, well, no, but I left one maybe.
No, I'm just kidding.
The Moneyball premise is right. Billy Bean identified a bunch of underappreciated or undervalued metrics that were actually key drivers of organizational success. What are the Moneyball metrics of professional services?
Yeah, well, I think the first thing we need to do is take a step back and look at the metrics that we've been using forever in professional services, like utilization or average billing rate. Those things are backwards looking. They're not predictive, and they are not outcome driven. And I think that we need to take a fresh look at how we evaluate our people, how we evaluate opportunities in our pipeline, and how we bring those things together and understand why projects are successful. I think we spend too much time, everybody spends time on the aftermath of a project gone bad to try and figure out why. We overestimated, we gave away too much work, whatever. We don't spend enough time understanding why projects went well. Who are the key people that made that go well? How do we build those relationships? And how do we duplicate that moving forward? So what was on my mind when I started thinking about and writing about advanced metrics were coming up with things. I have one that we call the developer impact rating. So when somebody's on a team, how are they impacting that team? Similar to a plus minus score in sports, right? This person always is on a team that does well. Projects on budget, on time, good client satisfaction ratings. We incorporate internal satisfaction. Every once in a while, there's a project that a client likes, but I might not. You can make clients happy by giving away work, for example, which isn't ideal from the professional services perspective. So that's one. We developed a metric called pipeline opportunity value, which allows you to look at your pipeline not just through a weighted dollar amount, but really to look at how well it fits to your ideal project profile. What are you really good at? And that's when you start to align sales and delivery. So that if you start filling your pipeline with projects that you've done and have references for in industries that you know well, with tech that you have, you're going to get better outcomes at the end. And I just think there's a lot of opportunities to look at things, through lenses that we just haven't done so far in professional services.
One of the things we've always told pure plays with is what's your ideal client, what's your ideal project, right? Because to your point, and I think we do spend too much time on why things fail and not enough on time why things work. Who do you have a good executive who's really motivated? Is it a measurable outcome? I had a client years ago, and I'll leave their name out, and their profile was so askew to our ideal profile that we built a second profile. None of these, right? You
Right.
can't make them successful, right?
Right.
And you get some of those. I get that, but if you could replicate, to your point, places that you want to play, either because strategic learning, new offers, or you're good at it, and accounts that you can get along with, and they can enjoy you. Yeah.
Yeah, and especially if you're a small to mid market pure play consulting company, you have to do the work to identify your ideal client profile and know what that looks like. But if you're, for example, a tech consulting company, there are ideal project profiles within that ideal client of where you're going to succeed. And I think the more you understand your place and what you're really good at, and make that repeatable instead of on accident. And hey, look, we're surprised we had a good project. I just think there's a lot more repeatable success that we can have. That, in my experience, especially as firms scale or do a lot of roll ups, they just lose.
Would you agree that if we do that well, it's also easier to bring junior people on and make them successful?
Oh, 100%, because you know what you're asking them to do. And, with AI now, everybody's talking about productizing services and things of that nature. But that's been a goal forever in professional services. How do you, make things easily repeatable with templates and questionnaires and, sample deliverables that you can duplicate? So once you're doing things that you know how to do, it's easier to bring along those junior people. And that was actually, thinking about that, when I first was running PSC Group, I would have swore I was never going to hire people right out of college. Our whole point to the marketplace was we have highly experienced people, and that's why you should bring us on. And I was eventually dissuaded from that fact by one of my great employees. And we started a college hiring program. And every spring and every winter, we were bringing on 2 people. We really built out a profile of the kind of people that we wanted, and had great success with that. And many of them, became managers and things like that in the company.
Yeah. Yeah. What are some of the other things that we should really be measuring? And I liked your early indicators, right? Yeah. Any early indicator that leads to a better outcome, we really need to, make primary, as opposed to, always looking, yeah, we made money, we didn't make money. That's a little late.
Yeah, and I think that now what we really need to be looking at, and back to sort of the Moneyball team building concept, is how are you putting your teams of people together, either as a practice leader, a resource manager, a project manager, whoever is responsible for the assignment of work. Too often, that is based solely on, hey, who's available? And I get that that's part of it. However, once you start to understand team dynamics and you start to take into account things like strength finder profiles or disc profiles, where you start to look at, hey, these 3 people have worked together on 4 previous projects and we've had good outcomes on all of them. So how can you compile and optimize the best team that you have? They're not going to be perfect because availability and tech skills are a thing, right? You have to have those as table stakes. But beyond that, once you put a team together, how can you, knowing what you know and knowing what the world knows about sort of discompatibility or, the variations of strengths that you need, how can you be proactive in terms of putting that team in the best position to win? Maybe with a team that doesn't have a high D personality in it, you're going to need to make sure that as the executive in charge, you're touching base with that client. Or you're going to work with that team before the project starts on their communication styles. Maybe you need to be taking into account mentoring opportunities within the project. I like to think about a concept of team synergy when you're building out technical profiles. You might have requirements, and again, I'll use the technology example because that's my expertise. You may have a need for a lead architect who's not going to do any coding or development work, and a Python developer. But if you have your lead architect who also has previous background in Python skills, that's a net plus for the project. And too often we look at role person, role person, role person without thinking about the qualities and skills of the overall team, both technically, experience in the industry or experience with the clients, and how they're going to work together.
You know what I like best about that is you never have the ideal situation, right? Or you do, but it's so rare
Rare.
with planning for that. You can tell what they need extra, and you can plan for that. Particularly leaders providing them what they need or getting additional development, and you know how much we care about development. So, but you can begin with, hey, we've got a pie here, and we've got to have some more strawberries. We got to, and we don't do that well, right? We kiss every team on the forehead the same way in our industry and say, do good, don't screw up.
Yeah, it's fingers crossed. Let's hope this one goes well. That's not, I think that's less true in smaller organizations that really know their people. This is why I think it fails when you start to think about rolling up and scaling, because we don't or aren't using measurable ways to look at and think about those things. We're falling back to utilization and average bill rate, which just doesn't give you any leading indicators on how a team is going to perform on a particular project.
You mentioned DISC and Strength Finders, which I think
Yes.
most of us know what those are. Are there any other tools that you really like? Or do you think
Those are the
cover
two.
the waterfront?
I think that those are the two most important. I think if companies are using other tools, you can easily incorporate those into the analysis that you're doing, right? Because really what you're looking for is diversity among your team, and diversity not only in communication styles or experiences, but also in personality types. That just gives you that much more leverage and ability to succeed.
No, and John, on when you're using those and you're looking at the overall team dynamic and the team performance, and you reference this concept of kind of a plus minus per individual and how they perform on teams and how those teams perform when they're on them. Are you quantifying these things, or are you thinking about it just in a way of like, hey, we need to be more analytical about it, but it's still qualitative? Like, help us
Well,
with.
so in what we're doing today is we are creating algorithms that will quantify much of that. So as you put a team together, it will give you a score on your technical coverage, on your team chemistry, on the experience that the team has working together in the industry with the client, and all of that leading to, I'll give you margin information. All of that leading to an overall team score and an overall risk score. And then it gives you all the things that you need to be able to mitigate the risk.
Yeah. Okay, I got it. And as you do that, I would imagine that you're thinking about it for your organization, but also for your clients' organizations, and customizing that algorithm for their organization based on prior successes and how they've performed across those different things.
Exactly.
So you won't be able to answer my question of, hey, I've got my strengths finder and my disc pulled up right now. Which of those profiles or which strength actually scores the highest, and to see how I stack up. You can't answer that question.
So exactly right. And it's not any disc profile is fine. Any strength profile is fine. It's now when I'm adding the second one and the third one, am I adding them in a way that's making them complementary and making the team structure stronger?
Yeah.
Or am I just duplicating the same thing over and over?
Yes. And we found, so it's interesting because firms have habits and biases towards people like them, right? I mean, it's just the natural tendency that happens. We've used different tools throughout the years, but we've done strengths finders and DISC at our consulting organization. And when we did DISC, we looked at the profile of it and we said, gosh, almost everybody is the exact same combination of, your two letters, and especially the most dominant letter. Like there was a lot of that going on. And so, but you're right. Like you start to think about things, and we were only doing this anecdotally at the time, but you look at it and you say, oh gosh, when you have a lot of C or some C's to balance out the strong D personality that is our firm at the time, those projects tend to go better for different kinds of reasons, right? There's just a different lens and perspective on it, and more time and consideration spent with on a bunch of topics that would have been ignored by your D's. And so, right, you make a conscious effort to now do that as part of either the hiring process or shortly after hiring and onboarding, to make sure that you're rounding out the team, not as a selection criteria necessarily for like, will we hire this person if they're not there, but like, hey, it's a good thing to know about people as you're staffing them and as you're assigning them a coach and developing, especially new staff, but also like new to the workforce. So like your college grad example that you had earlier.
Yeah, I think that's exactly true. And especially, I've used Strength Finders for a very long time. Yeah. And the things that I really like about it are, one, we did it for long enough that we were doing follow-ups with people to see whether or not their strengths changed. And in almost every case, they did not. Or if they did, it was easily explainable by a job change that they had since they had taken the previous one, or it was movement within those different segments, that they break the strengths into.
Yeah. No, I've done mine 10. I did it 11 years apart, and I ended up with I had one that subbed out, but it made sense, and it was kind of in the same trend there. So, I think it makes a lot of sense, and it does work to kind of balance a team out. There's some that, and maybe it's just personal bias, that you say like, hey, this one really makes a good fit for a consulting team and a consulting organization, those that have some of that skills. But I mean, for the most part, almost all of those play really well. And if you can balance a team with it.
We used to, it was really interesting. And I would encourage everybody to think about using this to really help them understand their teams. But because you are, so we were a technical consulting company. So we certainly had a lot of strengths that led towards analytical, right? Strategic, things of that nature. And so almost everyone would sort of have 3 of maybe 7 or 8 strengths, but then they also would have 1 or 2 that were pretty unique. We used to keep them across the company, and it was really helpful because it doesn't only help you when building a team, but if you're really using Strength Finders like it's intended, it's an awesome management tool, and it really helps you develop people. Because what it tells you as a manager, strengths shouldn't tell you person A should do this and person B should do this. What it should inform you is person A asked me a question, person B asked me the same question. I may give them different answers about what they should do in order to use their strengths to work and solve that problem. That's really the power in it.
It also lets you know how they hear, right? If I said, Anthony and I know each other a long time. If I said, I don't like that idea, I like ideas, by the way. So I probably tried that 85 times and gave up. Anthony might be more analytical about it, and he means keep talking to me. Or my wife would be that way. It's going to start with, I don't like that, meaning I don't understand yet. Same answers, meaning totally different things.
Yeah, very true. Yeah. So I just think there's room now in professional services to really be thinking about those things. And even more importantly, if, the AI doom and gloom, right? AI agents are going to take over. That's not true. But what makes projects go well, what makes culture successful, what makes client projects successful are the people that are interacting with the clients. They might be using all of these AI tools, but if they're not the right people, if those people aren't getting along, if they're not effectively communicating with the client, projects are going to go belly up. Projects do not fail, at least in the tech consulting world, because of technology. They fail because sales didn't set the expectations right, or we didn't hand it off well, or something like that, right? It's not the tech.
Yeah, I think people are our business. Let's get more scientific about it, right? And to your point, I think, Anthony just did a study on this. I think that AI eats away the repeatable technical activity, not the client activities. So if
Right.
we're going to make it as an industry to continue the impact we have, it's about client interaction, leading the client, staying ahead of the client, building good relationships, being trusted. Those are skills that, to our points, people can learn.
Yeah, it's all the soft skills. But somebody has to be willing to teach them. Somebody has to be willing to demonstrate how they're important. They have to be able to reward those behaviors. And the current metrics that we use does none of that. Utilization does none of that. Utilization, encourages potentially, if you're using it to bonus people, to work slower, which is going to reduce your client outcomes.
I think I had
To hog work and to not go and ask an expert, but to sort of grind over something by yourself. It reduces collaboration. It's just not a useful outcome metric, and it tends to be the only one anyone talks about in our
I
business.
had those work slower people do a renovation on my house. I think I know them.
Yeah. Well, I always, when people would ask about that, I always would ask if they wanted the slow rate or the fast rate.
Yeah, that's good.
So a lot of these things, right? I mean, there's the implementation of how you track and measure these things, but if you take it up a level, it feels like a lot of what you're talking about here goes back to we have to make some strategic decisions about what we want our business to be and where we want to play and how we want to operate. You use the example on what's your ideal customer profile and the ideal project type. The other example that's prevalent right now as we think about like a lot of SaaS organizations with embedded PS firms is, hey, what role does professional services really need to play? Is it a renewal driver? Is it a time to value driver? Is it a standalone revenue driver? Like, what is the value of that? And we're finding AI is causing this bit of schizophrenia in some of these organizations where like one day they're behaving in one way and another day they're trying to behave in a different way. And without having clearly defined that, all of these metrics are important, but they're not really driving you towards anything. They're just data. They're not informing your decision making process. So I do think you have to go up to the kind of the strategic level, and I'll use the baseball analogy again because we started there, and then I want your feedback on, okay, how do you establish a strategy so that these things actually work for you? But where I'm in Houston, and so we're an Astros town, and in the late 20-teens and early 2020s, like the Astros made a really strategic decision that said, hey, we want hitters that are either going to hit a home run or they're going to strike out, right? And so we're not playing for average anymore. But if you're tracking the metric that is average, and we could say, like, to Dean's point earlier, the more you can get on base, the better off you're going to be. They weren't playing that game. They were on the we're going to let's clear the bases as quickly as possible, and that changed the attitude towards things. So strikeouts weren't bad because strikeouts were a metric that was saying, well, we're swinging in the right way that are driving us towards the thing that we want. And so like that's a strategic decision that informs all these things downstream. So either in your experience helping coach organizations on how to implement these metrics, or when you did it yourself, how would you advise leaders on like how to just cut through the clutter of like running the business on a day-to-day basis to actually formulate what is our strategy so that now all this other stuff that we're talking about here could actually hang off of it? Do you have any guidance there for just resetting or reestablishing strategy?
That was a lot there.
Yeah. So a couple of examples, but all of it I think centers around the same premise, right? Which is start with your strategy and then let all this follow.
Well, if you are a leader or a owner of a professional services business, you have to be able to work on the business, not in the business all the time. And it's too easy to get caught up in all of the firefighting. I like to say that consulting and professional services is not a complicated business, but it is a sophisticated business. And what makes it sophisticated is that you have to have a lot of things in harmony at the same time. We used to talk about a virtuous circle. You sell a good deal, you staff it well, the project goes well, people are happy, they stay, you get the next project, and you sort of build on that. But as soon as you have a project start to go off the rails and salespeople are now in trying to put out fires, and people are unhappy because they're under pressure. That can unwind very quickly. And so as a leader in these organizations, you do have to be able to step away and say, this is our ideal project profile, and I mean it. We have to be able to say, no, this isn't a good fit for us. And if you're going to say yes, you have to do it in a way that says, I'm saying yes because I think this is an opportunity and an area for us to grow, even though we haven't done this before. And I understand the risk that we're taking, and here's all the things that I'm doing to mitigate it. But you can't just be chasing the next billable hour, or you're just on that hamster wheel.
Yeah. Yep. So, and I like that because it is easy to fall into the trap of we've defined a strategy, but that's not the hard part. The hard part is actually sticking to that strategy when tough decisions confront it, right? We have a big revenue project, but it falls outside of our ideal customer or project profile, and the revenue looks attractive, but it actually sets us back 3 to 6 months on our other strategic objectives of scaling what is our ideal profile, or whatever the case may be. So commitment to the strategy is important, and that's why these metrics become really important, because now we can prove to ourselves that we're doing the right thing and we're moving in the right direction and we're able to make progress there.
100% right. So if you, because you can do this looking backwards, right? So if you have a history of projects but you've never done any of the personality stuff, for example, with your people, but you go and do them. And then you look at what combinations of people were working on the projects that were successful. What were the real projects that were successful in terms of what industries we were working in? How big were they, right? All of those things. And you can get a sense you can really extract new insights out of old data, which I think is pretty powerful. And to be honest, that's one of the things I think AI is, at least for our purposes today and what we're doing with my company now, is so powerful at going and pulling structure out of unstructured data, SOWs, timesheet summaries, things like that.
Yeah. John, this has been, as we knew it would be, very, very good, very exciting. Leave us with that one, magic thought. Then I know you've prepared this your entire life. Can we get a bright light on John? Maybe make him sweat. What's the one takeaway you would want every PS leader or pure play executive to take away?
If it was me, given 30 years of experience and all of the ups and downs in my career and the places where I really felt like everything was humming and working on all cylinders, it all comes back to, you have to understand your people and put them in positions where they're going to be successful. When we used to talk about trying to measure some of these things, people would say, well, isn't that really big brotherish? Why are we doing all the, who cares what somebody's strengths are? Why do we want to know this? And it's not because I necessarily want to know it just for me, although that is a benefit. But what I want to be able to tell an employee is, if you come to work for our organization, we are going to continually put you in positions to win, to have success, to advance your career, because we're taking on projects that we know that you can do. We're putting you with people that we know you can be compatible with, people who we know can mentor you in the next things that you want to learn. To me, this has never been anything more than a real people business. And it's those people who are out interacting, and they're your product, right? As we say all the time. They walk out the door every day at 5:00, and their time is immediately perishable. They have to be valued, and they have to be valued over a long-term picture. It's not about what somebody's utilization was last week or last month. It's about how are they going to help you win that next deal and the deal after that. And are you, as a owner or a leader in one of those organizations, living up to your obligation to develop people? And, and again, back to utilization. To me, utilization is a shared responsibility. It's my job as an owner of a company to make sure my people have interesting and challenging things to work on. It's not, they can't do anything about that. Their job is, once they have those things, to do them well to the best of their abilities, and to maximize the opportunity that we have, right, by taking full advantage of those hours. But utilization is just looking in the rearview mirror. And especially today, we need to have our eyes high up on the horizon of where we're going.
Yep. No, I think that's great. I think the leading indicators of success and those data points and metrics that we might have to go back to discover them, but making sure that we're setting things up and we're looking at data and information, to your point, that allows us to be successful in the future rather than tells us what's already happened so that we can then guess on why we were successful and then maybe make informed decisions down the road as a result of that. That's the game changer, because the information is all there. And to your point, the AI and the tools that we have available give us such freedom now to be able to actually interpret that unstructured data and act upon it, that we're doing our firms or organizations a disservice if we're not incorporating these into our daily management conversations.
100% agree.
John, it's been great.
John.
Thank you so much. And we talk over each other the whole time. That's what we do here. And we'll have you back, John. And I look forward to seeing you in person soon.
This was awesome. Thank you so much for having me. It was a great time.
Well, if you enjoyed that conversation with John, want to hear more like it, check us out on our YouTube page or on your favorite podcast network, Spotify, Apple Podcast, all of the above. While you're there, subscribe, like, add a comment. All of those things are helpful for us for the show, and we'd really appreciate it. If you want to get in contact with Dean or myself, our LinkedIn pages are the best place to do it, or you can always email the show with topic suggestions, guest suggestions, questions, any of those things at podcast@consultantsway.com. Looking forward to hearing from everybody, and we'll see you next time.